I've had a number of visits to Spain in the last 20 years or so for a convention or another. And on one of them, when I go there, I do a convention, I do a book signing, I do an event or speech. Um, but I don't then just turn around and go home. I want to see some of the country. I want to travel around. And I go to different parts. And I've only been to Gibraltar once, but it was one of my longer trips to the Iberian Peninsula, let me say. I came in and I went to Madrid and then up to, I think it was Gijón for the Semana Negra Festival, which is a big thing there. I've been guest several times. And I went to Barcelona. And then I traveled around with some of my Spanish publishers and translators to other places that I'd never been to before, including Seville. I think we stayed a couple nights in a castle out in the countryside, and then down to Granada, which I wanted to see, and then to Gibraltar, which I'd read about. I'd already, of course, so I already had Casterly Rock in mind based on Gibraltar, but I'd never been to Gibraltar, so it was a real fun for me to go there. And I think I was only there for like 3 nights, 3 days, but it was a lot of fun, and it really made an impression, and it inspired me to even write more about Casterly Rock. And someday I hope to actually get inside there in the books to take the characters inside.
You said in your blog that you envisaged Casterly Rock as a fortress within a rock, much like Gibraltar. So, how did your visits to Gibraltar help you develop this concept?
Well, I already had the concept, as I said, decades before I came there, just from reading about Gibraltar, reading the histories and all of that. But it was it was a lot of fun and very informative to see it. What I remember after all this time, I toured the gun galleries, where you walk through the tunnels and they have the guns, the Napoleonic era, I think it was, guns looking out that they used to defend the rock from attack. I learned about the various sieges and so forth. There was a presentation by a guide about the use of Gibraltar in World War II by the British Navy as submarine pens and things like that. The safe part, that was interesting and informative. But then we wandered to other areas in the rock. Again, I had a guide, including the cave areas where I saw stalagmites and stalactites. I'm a big cave fan too. I've been to a lot of caves in the United States, including, I live in New Mexico, so we have Carlsbad Caverns here, which is one of the great wonders of the world, with going just down and down and down, and incredible cave formations and a huge room at the bottom. Gibraltar was smaller than that, but still impressive, and it had at the heart of it the theater, which was very nice, where I guess you have concerts and musical performances and, I don't know, lectures, right? The other thing, of course, that I remember from Gibraltar, which I've not stolen for Casterly Rock, is the Barbary apes. The guide I had hired, who was driving me around, showing me the sights, he drove up and got out and to introduce me to the apes, and he warned me to take off my hat. I always had my steamboat captain's hat I wear, and my glasses. And he said, don't, the apes will steal your hat, and they will steal your glasses, and they'll climb up on you. And so I took off my hat and my glasses, and indeed he was right. As you see from that picture, suddenly I had an ape on my back, and it was fun. And there were a lot of other apes there around there. They seemed to me very friendly. He was very nice to me, and I had no glasses or hat for him to steal, so he couldn't do that. So that was fun. And I recall the guide also took us. There was another a round tower that's separate from the rock itself that we visited. That was interesting, and another place where there's some big guns looking out to sea. I'm sorry, I don't have all the names, but you probably know everything I'm referring to. And then the rock itself is just so incredibly impressive when you get to the base of it, down at sea level, and you look up and it's looming over you. It's big. Of course, Casterly Rock is bigger. That's something I always do in my fantasy. Like the wall in the north was inspired by my visit in 1981 to Hadrian's Wall. And, that had a profound effect on me, standing on Hadrian's Wall as the sun went down, trying to imagine that I was a Roman legionary from, Hadrian's reign. But when you're doing fantasy, as opposed to historical fiction, you turn it up to 11, as I like to say. So Hadrian's Wall is like 10 feet tall. My wall was 700 feet tall. With the Rock of Gibraltar, I had a much bigger rock to begin with, but and quite a lot of history, like 2,000 years of history going back to the Pillars of Hercules and the ancient Romans and Greeks. But even so, the Casterly Rock goes back 10,000 years, and it's larger outside, it's taller, it's longer, it's wider. It's directly on the sea, so there are actually docks underneath it where a ship can sail in, and it has so many more tunnels and caverns and halls that have been chiseled out and widened and decorated with carvings in the wall, because it has thousands of more years for those to be done. But Gibraltar reference was my starting point.
You also mentioned that the artist Ted Naismith absolutely nailed what Casterly Rock would have looked like. Can you talk us through his painting and what impressed you so much about it?
Well, the first thing that impressed me was that he got it right, that it was a rock. And I was working with him. I was consulting with him, trading emails, so I knew that. But if you go online and enter Casterly Rock, look for images, many of them get that wrong. What they paint, and sometimes very badly, sometimes very nicely, they paint a castle on top of a rock. And that's the way they did it in the TV show, which is just wrong. It's not just a big rock that somebody built a conventional castle on. The castle is inside the rock, as the fortifications were inside the Rock of Gibraltar. They didn't build a bunch of stuff on top of the Rock of Gibraltar. They went in, and then they have tons and stone protecting them from any enemy who might want to get in there and do them harm. So he got that right. And then we discussed other details like why House Lannister, which holds the rock, and House Casterly before them, all have lions as their sigil, their heraldic sigil. Why would they have that? Well, I think at some point in ancient history, there were lions who made their lair in the cave in the rock before human beings occupied it. But also the rock from a certain angle looks like a crouching lion. And Ted and I worked about how would that be. Okay, there would be this stone thing that kind of looks like paws if you look at it from the right angle. That was partly inspired. I live here in, as I say, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we have just north of town, we have a rather famous place called Camel Rock. And, nobody lives in it. It's just a rock formation by the side of the road, but it does indeed look like a camel. It looked more like a camel 20 years ago, but pieces of it fell off. But I wanted him to capture that, and he got that. And also I thought, yeah, they would want some lights in it. So there would be windows, there would be arrow slits, but they would be, at higher positions and all of that. And the entrance would be on this side. And so we discussed all of that, and he rendered all of that brilliantly. I mean, Ted did all the castle illustrations for my world book concordance called The World of Ice and Fire. And we made a calendar for them in 2011, I believe it was, which was it's an old castle calendar. So you can see Ted's versions of all of the major castles of Westeros. And Casterly Rock was one of the best. I think he did a great job, and it's the definitive version, at least as of this time.
Well, finally, you have a lot of fans in Gibraltar. What would you like to say to them?
To all my fans in Gibraltar, well, I hope you enjoy the show, but I hope you read the books too. And yeah, keep reading. I am working on Winds of Winter. I know it's 12 years late, but it will be done one of these days. And I love my visit to Gibraltar. I would love to come back someday. Maybe I'll give a talk inside Casterly Rock and the Rock of Gibraltar, and I'll see my ape friends again. That would be nice.